What is up? How is it going, everyone? Welcome to something a little bit different. Um, this is not our normal stream, obviously, because I'm the only one here, so you are missing everybody. A couple of people are away tonight, so we decided to do something a little bit different. Try to put a couple things together, and I am going to do some live mapping. So for our Elder Brain Dungeons and Dragons campaign, Sea of Souls, I create most of the maps. Not all. I use some maps from Twitch. Not from Twitch. We're on Twitch. From Twitter, I use some maps that I found on Patreon. But the world map and the city maps, settlement maps, a lot of the dungeon maps as well, I do create them. And so I wanted to give a little bit of behind the scenes. I think that'd be kind of fun. And I'm just going to be making maps. I'm going to be working on a specific map and hanging out. So if you are hanging out with me, then feel free to chat along inside the chat room and give me some feedback as well. We'll just talk to you if you have questions about the campaign. It'd be a good time to just kind of hang out and ask those questions as well. And if you have questions about how I make my maps, then you can ask me those questions as well. My name is Pundy, aka Craig, and welcome to Pundy Maps, our behind the scenes special of me making maps. I have my new friend with me. This is Virgil. So he's one of these flippy guys, and I've seen these for like a while, and I really wanted one. And then my wife and I were in the store the other day, and we saw them, and they were on sale. So it was like, yeah. So I got one, and this is Virgil. I played with a couple of names, but I kind of wanted something that. So he's my STEM friend. For those of you who don't know, I have ADHD and autism, and so I like STEMmy things. And Nero, I thought about Nero, so it's going with like something like on a neurodivergent naming pattern, and Nero came to mind first, and then I thought Virgil, like Virgent, neurodivergent, and Virgil kind of that made sense. So this is Virgil. Virgil's gonna hang out right there, and I'm in a pretty good mood at the moment. So he'll be my happy little co-star, and then Gollum in the background there. But yeah, without wasting more time me blabbing about nonsense, let's go ahead and I'll show my mapping tool. And we're going to jump into me making maps. So I use a program called Campaign Cartographer 3. Excuse me, CC3 Plus to be specific. And I have a whole buttload of different plugins and everything that I use to make my maps. And one of my favorite artists for map making is you can see it all here in the is Mike Schley. Schlayscapes, you might be familiar with Schlayscapes. If you've read any of the D&D source books, the D&D 5e source books specifically, you will have seen Mike Schley's maps. He makes absolutely gorgeous maps, and he creates assets for CC3 Plus as well, for city maps, dungeon maps, overland maps. My the world map that I created for the campaign uses his style, and it's my favorite. I use some of my own assets. I use some other assets, some plugins that are available for this from artists such as John Roberts is another one that I've used some of his stuff. But Schley is my favorite. I slay with Schley. So this is the work in progress map of the city of Valtir. And if you're following a campaign, then Valtir, or Tyr, as it had been previously known, renamed by the current ruler. Yeah, this is where the players are, and there's a lot going on in Tyr. And normally, when I have a major location in mind for a campaign, I want to have a map. I don't always do maps for everything for every location, but when it's something really significant, then I do maps. So I have put a map up on our streams for Puerto de Arias, for example, Easthold, where everything started, for the Ivory Spire Port, Ebon Port, as well, and I had those ready beforehand. Tier was one that I have redesigned Tier a number of times, and never was really quite happy with how it came together. So it's one that I've been working on, trying to, get really get the way that I want it, and it hasn't quite been there yet. But I think I'm there now. And with all my maps, I always start with sketching. So this map, just like everything else, started out as a sketch, and I have this book. This is just one of my journals that I use, and like a whole whack load of notes as well. I write a whole bunch of notes about it. Yeah, I sketched this out before I knew when exactly the party was going to go to Valtier. It was definitely one of those locations that was always a possibility. It's something that it was just a matter of when, not if. And so I sketched it out, and then I scanned it in, and so you can see here, this is my very, very rough sketch of Valtier. I had an idea of what I wanted the harbor to look like, sort of the general layout of the town. There's two tiers in Tier, different kind of tier, T-I-E-R. There's like high town, high city, and then like the low city. And the city is located in a lot of highlands and sort of raised plateaus around it. And so the idea that I had for this, I thought was really cool, was you've got the harbor, kind of in here, this area, and you've got the low city, and then there's a wall that is on this lower plateau area, kind of nestled in this little valley between two higher plateaus, and that's where Hightown is, and Hightown is where all the nobles are. And then it kind of goes back into sort of this lush green area that's sort of like private for for the nobles. Back in the day, in like in our history, the king would have the royal woods where only the king could hunt deer, or you'd have places like that, plots of land where only nobles could go, and it was reserved for their sport, for their enjoyment. So kind of that idea where you've got this lush greenery that's only for the big families and nobles of Tier. And then to the south, there's like lots and lots of woods, big woods. There's shallows, which has come into play in our recent episodes. I won't go too much in the detail for spoilers there. But the party is currently in the shallows right now. And there's lots of wildlife in the woods. These are wild woods. And then up on the plateaus, there are a number of different features. Some of these have started to come into play, some of them haven't, some of them they might not. It all depends on what the party decides to do. There's always options, and even when the party was in Puerto de Arias, they didn't get involved in everything that was possible to do there, and they may or may not get involved in everything here. One of the major things is the high castle up on the top of the sort of this plateau at the top here, and that's where the castle is. That's where the Lord or Lady of Vale, of Tier, from the Vale family, that's where they rule from. So it is the current ruling place of Eddard Vale II, or whatever has taken over him. Spoiler alert. So that's going to go in this spot up here, and as you can see, I've got the city working out. And for this one, because the terrain around Tier really comes into play, and is almost just as important as the city itself, I made the map a lot bigger than it needed to be just for the city, so that I could include some of this wilderness, this wild space around. There's going to be some key features here, and I wanted it to be as close to sort of what I'd planned out here, and I think it's pretty close. So the next step that I do, so I'm kind of going through the steps here. And again, if I get sidetracked, I blame my ADHD. Sorry, it happens. So the next step is kind of roughly measuring out, the size of the document that I want. And then I will actually, so I scan that document or scan that picture, and then I will put it into my program here. Okay, so you see I've got it there. And I'll put it at the very top layer. So I'll create a new layer called drawing. And then I can adjust the transparency as I need to here. So there I've got the transparency, and you can just kind of see that it's there. And I'll change the opacity a bit on this so you can see. So I've got this put in place in the program, and now that I have the general idea, so I've kept pretty similar to it. A few things that I've changed and moved around as I've kind of created this. There's this big plateau jutting out here that I decided I wanted a little bit less of because I wanted some farmland. But it gives me a really good guide that I can work with. And I can change that overlay or that drawing as I need to, and then hide it when I don't need it. And I have been hard at work at this map. I've restarted and changed it a number of times. It's just one that I haven't really gotten where I wanted it to, but I'm finally on the right track, I think. So what I've done is I've given this nice sort of circular port in here, and for this I was inspired by a couple of things. I am a big book nerd. Books. And I'm also I wouldn't say I'm a history nerd, but I am interested in a lot of history, especially like ancient history. And so I know that the city of Carthage had a sort of enclosed a round port, and then also in one of my favorite series of all time, the Wheel of Time series, the city of Tarvalin, where the White Tower is. It has a North Harbor and a South Harbor, and both of those harbors are circular as well. They're kind of, you go in, so there's like a mouth, an opening to the harbor that gives it some sort of protection, and then there's like the docks kind of form this semicircle on the inside. And so that was my inspiration for this harbor. I wanted there to be, a protective opening. So you've got the high plateaus and cliffs here, and then there's kind of a narrow, makes it a little bit more defensive for keeping out unwanted ships, and then you've got the docks kind of on the inside here as well. I'm not entirely satisfied with the layout that I've got of the piers at this point, so I will probably change that maybe now. In fact, even as I'm looking at these towers that I've got hanging out at the end here, I don't like them, so I'm just going to go ahead and bullet them. Bulleted. Because, yeah, I just took a second look at them and did not like what I saw. So I've got a lot done here. I've kind of divided even the low town into quarters or districts, which is what I fairly often do. There's bleed over. You'll find, shops and houses and things in kind of all different districts. But for the most part, I've tried to divide it by color. And this doesn't necessarily mean that, in game world, from the players or from the character's point of view, that every roof in that quarter has the exact same color and looks exactly the same. The biggest rule of thumb always with fantasy mapping like this is that it's representative. It's not detailed and accurate. This isn't a 100% accurate map like you would find on Google Maps, when you're trying to, in our world, trying to find a destination. It's very representative, and it color blocking it this way, for me at least, it makes things a little bit easier to separate visually, so I can understand, when I am describing in the adventure, for example, if the PCs are moving around town, going to different locations, having it color blocked like this visually, when I'm looking at it, I can kind of track and say, okay, I know they're in the merchant quarter, which is sort of more the blue area, or the sort of main area where there's more warehouses stuff. That's going to be where the brown is. The poorer side of town is going to be down. Where the sort of less color is, and some of these thatch buildings, some of the ruins from the assault on Tyr that took place a decade previously, which most of the damage has been repaired, but there's still some left over, much to Torque's dismay. Watch the stream to find out what that's all about. And then one thing that this is something that I learned, and as making maps with any kind of art, any kind of creation, you always want to learn. You always kind of want to improve your craft. And the more that I got into making maps and began studying, fantasy maps that other people created, and even trying to look at, some historical maps as well, there always tends to be these sort of gate cities or tent cities outside of the main city walls. With a city like this where there's defensive walls, most of the houses are going to be inside. You've got these farmlands and stuff on the outside as well, but then there's going to be, smattering of maybe market stalls or, cheap inns and taverns and stuff that are going to be on the outside of the wall for either poorer folk, less reputable folk, or travelers as well, who with it before getting into the city proper might want to just kind of hang out on the fringes. So I've got that going on down here, and then again there's this farmland which I've created, and there's got some water mills and stuff here, some crops, all surrounded by wood. And so you might notice that the forest kind of looks not the best quality here, but it's just the way that it works in this program. See, if I zoom in there, now looks, you can see the Schley forests there. When I fully render this into high-res PNG, which is usually what I go with, TIFF format sometimes, at PNG, this is what it'll look like. It'll look like this pattern here. So the resolution, the way that the program actually saves memory when you're editing it is that when you're zoomed out, it uses different samples of the bitmaps that are used. So it uses a lower res bitmap for when you're way out here, so that it's not trying to render all of this in incredible detail at this distance. It's just not necessary. And then if I zoom in really, really close, then it's going to show me the much higher detail. So really, really intuitive, really saves on load time and memory usage for the program. Can you imagine if everything was in full high res the entire time, zooming out that much? It'd be madness, total madness. So let's go ahead. I'm going to make some stuff. What I was recently working on, this is the high town up here. I haven't quite got back to editing it. I was working on it, but I think I want to continue working on the temple mount in certain ways. You can think of it. So on this plateau up here, as shown in my drawing, so this is where the Temple of Desfuna resides. The Temple of Desfuna is sort of the high temple of Tyr. They are traditional Desfunians. Desfuna is the goddess of the sea, specifically the goddess of the deep sea, but she is the goddess of the sea. And yeah, I'm going to work on this temple. So I had some ideas. I kind of mapped it out previously, where I've got this bridge coming across, and there is this path coming up, and there's actually a low wall that goes around the terrace, looking down into High Town, looking down to Low Town. And the normal way that one would get to the temple would have to be, you go up through High Town, and the idea was that there'd be, some stairs or some sort of thing kind of built into the cliff that would take you up, and then you cross this bridge and go over to the temple. So you had to make a journey to get up there, a pilgrimage, as it were. In our story, since Hightown is closed off to all Lowtowners, to any visitors, then you can't take the main way in. And so I had decided that they had created a backdoor, so to speak, a lift. And so our party actually took that lift when they first went to the temple, seeking Tanshu. It wasn't there, but that's where they were going. Torque needed to go and speak to the Tanshu, who was the high priest that he recalled. And so they had to take this lift that was built into the side of the cliff. Think of it kind of like a weight or a freight elevator. You know, basically just a platform made out of wood with you know, cables and ropes. You know, somebody at the bottom kind of securing it, and then a big winch system at the top that would just, you know, with torque, different kind of torque, not the turtle, would raise and lower the platform. And so I have this built into kind of the side here, and then there was this little private garden, which is tended by the Disfunian clergy. So the members of the temple had a garden here that they were keeping quite green and were tending. And so since they already had that property to themselves, they already owned it, then they were able to go ahead and facilitate building in a back door. So the temple itself, in my mind, you know, it kind of has this teardrop style. And again, when I make these maps, because I'm not doing it by hand, I'm not hand drawing every single asset. Everything is very much representative. So I have, you know, this is a barracks. This is a barracks type thing. They're not necessarily going to be a barracks in Game World. They're not going to look the same. Every workshop isn't going to look the same. Every inn isn't going to look the same. They look the same on the map, but they don't necessarily look that way in the game. So anything that I put on here, it's not going to fully represent the temple, you know, in the best way that I want it to. And so typically what I do is I kind of, for something that's a temple, I want it to have a sort of a grandeur. You know, it should look like a temple. So I'm gonna go ahead with this cathedral style building, and this one kind of looks teardrop-ish, I guess. On the wrong layer, I need to go to symbol heights, symbol up on the height. So I create multiple layers to represent so the different heights of the map. I'm not going to get into how I create all those different layers and stuff in Campaign Cartographer 3. Maybe I'll do a video about that. But there's lots of tutorial videos out there. This is more just how I make my maps. So that looks relatively teardrop-ish, I think. And I will layer assets normally, layer symbols to create the desired look. I want to make sure I get the right color here. So I can do, it needs to be bigger. I can do something like, so that's like the tower, or, you know, where the main chapel or sanctuary in the temple, you know, the entrance would be on this side here, and then you walk through down this big long hall, and then you have this big main chamber there. I think that looks pretty good. And yeah, I think that kind of looks fairly teardrop-ish. Again, just kind of going for the general representative feel. Maybe I'll move this in a little bit. I'm trying to decide if I want that farther back. Nah, I think it needs to be closer in. So it kind of looks like it's over. Yeah. I mean, that looks temple-ish to me, I think. Looks like a good temple. And then so there's going to be the roads. So that is something that I have not created yet, is I have not done the roads for the upper level, I think. I did roads for there. So I need to add a roads terrace level. And I'm going to make sure that I put that above. So I'm moving it down. Whatever's at the bottom is like the top layer. So, and anything at the top of the list, that's like the first layer to the background, and then the more you add on to it, kind of goes down. So the opposite of things like, you know, Photoshop and stuff, where whatever's at the top is the upper layer, it goes backwards. So these terraces, these plateaus are terrain 2, and then terrace terrain is what I've done. You know, kind of the grass. I add some different field effects and things like that. So I need to make sure this goes above that, and I want it to go above any water that I have up there, but below the walls. So if I do that, that should work. But I'm going to use the terrace terrain effects because I think those will work better for what I have in mind. So okay, so I got my roads terrace layer, and I'm going to create a thin dirt road. Now it's going to go back to road, so I'm going to have to fix that. But just going from this footbridge. So the idea that I had was that there's sort of this winding path. The idea with the temple of Tisfuna is that, you know, she's the goddess of the sea, goddess of the waves. You know, straight line, not really kind of what we're going for. More the flow, the weave and flow. That didn't quite show up how I want it, so I think I need to really reduce this edge fade. That should fix it. Okay, it's showing up there. It's still a little bit darker than I want, so let me see if I can work on that. Oh, there's my transparency that might be the issue. Yeah. Okay. And I want that natural brown to come out, so I will take away that desaturation. The transparency, I want it to kind of blend in. This is a worn path, you know, this isn't something that's like a road, so maybe a little bit more opaque. There. So that looks better. Now we've got this dirt path. You know, there's a gate where the bridge comes in, and then it pops in there. And obviously we need one coming from the new entrance over here. So again, we'll kind of have this curve. And we'll make this join up with both. So you kind of get this split path effect there. That's better. Oh, we can even have put some water there, I think. Would look really nice. And it'll kind of be this little pond. Which for the goddess of the sea, it makes sense, right? I think I want, let's try a light blue. This is kind of nice, bright freshwater pond. I guess it could be seawater, that'd be kind of funny. Now that's going to be on the wrong layer. Ooh, wrong with that. A lot of times with this, it's a game of layers, of finding layers. So that's okay. I might change that. But or maybe I'll just grow it. So one thing you can do is I can kind of hide the edges underneath the road, and that way it'll blend in a little bit more, I think. Maybe. A lot of just back and forth and playing with things until I get it the way that I want it. So the nice thing about doing things digitally like this is that I can just undo. And I am not an artist in any stretch of the imagination. I don't have. I mean, I could do that, but you know, you think like Devin Rue, Muchley, even people who make these insanely beautiful drawn maps, hand drawn or even digitally drawn maps. I would love to have that talent, but I don't. It kind of looks like a ghost, doesn't it? Looks like one of those like Pac-Man ghosts. I could put like a little island in there to kind of make it look like that, but I won't do that. So the only other really thing that this I really want up at the top here, maybe some sort of living quarters for some of the clergy. So thinking pretty basic, but it could kind of look temple-ish. So there's this small temple which could serve as a dormitory style building, and I would say that's probably in behind here, so that it's not, you know, front and center when people come up sort of the normal way. I don't want that color. I want the blue. So all the symbols in here, they have their sort of their regular color and then a variant color. So the blue is what I'm using. Now it's showing up green here, but it should show up blue when I put it because I clicked blue. So yeah, that works. A little dormitory. I could even have like a side hall. You know what? I think that works. I like this idea. Symmetry is I get caught up sometimes in trying to be too symmetrical with things, and then I miss out on good ideas. So I'm going to go ahead and so you make this little covered walkway idea, right? And then kind of coming off of that will be the like the priest's quarters, right? They kind of live in this spot back here. And then what I can do, let's add a little rotunda sort of thing. You know, some sort of like living quarters area. Also just so that I can kind of make my connection of the buildings work there. And I want to make this underneath everything, so I'll use my send to back tool. And it should put it back where I want it, underneath everything. That kind of works. Now obviously they need a path to go there as well. Now if this is where the path would have come from, then it would have originally come like that, and then they would have kind of worn it in there, so you would have got this faded path like so. And I could put an altar, sort of an outdoor shrine for when people kind of first arrive. They'll come in to see that. Oops. I'm on the wrong layer again. I'm on symbols. I need to go to symbols heights. Symbols heights is where I want to put this altar. There. And then that way, when people first come up, they enter into the gates. Let's put a little shrine here as well. Or better yet, the shrine will be in the water because that is what this rune would do. Should have this little shrine in the water. See, that's kind of cool. I kind of imagine, like, you know, this is like an outdoor shrine. There's the major temple, but then there's this little shrine that's like surrounded by water, and the only way to get there is by these you know, like a stepping stone path type thing. And I really don't want those with that much of a wall shadow on them, no. So I need to add another layer. Symbol's heights is what I call that. Symbol's heights low. Naming layers. That's always a challenge for artists, isn't it? So I need to make sure that goes below the heights, and I am going to use these effects and paste it, but then I'm going to change my wall shadow, and instead of the length being at 10, we'll drop it to 2 so that it's just a little bit of a shadow, just showing a little bit of elevation, not too high. And then if I move these onto that layer, that will get rid of that massive shadow and just give us just a wee bit of one. I'll do that for this guy too, because it's a small altar, it's not a big thing. There we go. I might even reduce that a little bit more, I think. Let's go length 1. Yeah, that's better. Very subtle. A little bit of a subtle drop shadow, a little bit of a subtle 3D effect there to show, just to show that they're raised slightly. That looks kind of nice. And I think we need some trees. Happy little trees, as Bob Ross would say. So let's go ahead and add some trees. Now I'm putting everything at 0.5 scale, half scale. And that's just because of the way that the scale that I decided to do this map at. If I did everything at size 1, a little bit big. A little big, and I wanted things to be a little bit smaller without the map being huge. So if I did to scale and I did it size 1, the map would be like at least twice as big. And that'd be a very big file. I didn't want it to be that big. So I'm on the wrong layer again. I do that often. So we will throw these trees onto symbols heights. Sometimes, depending on how complicated I'm getting in a map, I will actually do a separate trees layer as well in dungeon maps. Which has trees in dungeon, but dungeon maps even just includes things, you know, like an outdoor dungeon map or, you know, a smaller house kind of map. There is a trees layer by default, and sometimes I will add one into this sort of thing as well, but I don't think I need one at the moment. The trees aren't too primary in this map. They're just kind of here and there to add some greenery, just as a reminder that there are growing things. And then I will add some bushes. So the bushes, of course, will go layer below the trees so that I can do something like this. And they show up under, because there's always, you know, there's always bushes and stuff that grow under trees. You get undergrowth, right? So again, it just adds a little bit of layering. That's something to make like there's a big bush under there. And there we go. So we got some foliage. That one looks like it is stuck to the back. Maybe that's just the way that it... Okay, it looked like it was going under the building for a second there. I don't want it going under the building. Not at all. Oh yeah, sometimes I have a bevel on this here, and it's just some way, again, when it's kind of zoomed in at certain times, it gives it that look. Just a rendering thing. All right, so I think the temple plateau. I'm not gonna say temple mount. I think the temple plateau looks pretty good. So I have Lowtown. I think I'm done. Lowtown. I still might need to do some work on the docks. But for the most part, everything around here looks good. And I have the temple. Oh, I know what I was going to do. So I have the way that the water kind of works in this city is so obviously they're on the coast. It's a it's a sea, so that's all salt water there. But there is fresh water coming in from the highlands up here, and so you've got these streams that are kind of running along, coming from some further inland on this mountain or on this island. There's some more mountainous regions and springs welling up, and you got some rain kind of collecting, etc. So I've got these rivers, and this one's kind of dropping off of the cliff into this lake, this sort of forming a reservoir. And then what they've done is they've essentially created viaducts or canals coming out of that to carry the fresh water throughout the city. And so they bring it along Hightown, and then it drops down into these canals which run through Lowtown as well, which then these ones here will drain out into the bay. And then they've used it for irrigation down here out into their fields as well. Not a lot of farming for Tyr. The import, they've sort of been they get a lot of stuff from trees, and they get orchards. They do a lot of meat, hunting, a lot of fish, a lot of fish, seafood. But they do have, you need farms, you need sustainability, and so they've got those there. So that's sort of the irrigation system, how it works. And then there are some sewers, basic sewers as well. Not like New York sewers, more like Kitchener sewers where I live. You can't go, you're gonna find lizards and go walking around in there, but just small tunnels. But the shading on here, I wanted to give some depth, but it looks like it turned out a little bit dark, and then I've got some overlapping issues here, so that is something that I am gonna have to work on. That's boring stuff though, so I don't want to do that now. Just changing the shading on water over and over and over again. I can't imagine that would be too exciting. So let's get to work on Hightown. So Hightown is where the nobles live, and again, so color blocking, this doesn't mean that every single manor is going to look exactly the same or have the same color roof. It's just representation. But obviously, as opposed to Lowtown, things are much more spaced out here. Nobles have property, they have greenery, they have backyards, things like that where they can hang out, they can have their own private grounds with their own private security, that sort of thing. So they've got space. There's space here. And you've kind of got the middle, I guess not middle class, they're more like kind of middle upper class. You know, you always have the, they would be like the merchants, the wealthier merchants, or smaller noble families who can't necessarily afford, you know, massive manors and estates. And so kind of along here, this northern little stretch is where some of the smaller rich houses are. And then the majority of these spaces down here, you know, I'll put some hedge fences and the like to kind of show that, you know, they've got all this property basically all to themselves. They rich, they can afford it. So I need to finish my canals and then figure out what sort of bridge system, how I want to represent the bridges on here. So a very handy tool in CC3 is the eyedropper tool, which, like in most things, you know, you get the color and everything, but in this, what it does is it copies every element about an asset or about an object. So, you know, click on the river here and it takes me to the right sheet or layer. It gives me the right size, it gives me the fill and everything. It puts all that there for me. And I want these smaller ones though, 5 foot. And then I can just use my line tools here. And so you got a bit of overlap there, which is what I'm not exactly happy about. I want it to meet up the edge. Sometimes, so if you get too much of the overlap with some of the textures, they don't blend as well as they ought to. I feel like I almost think I've got 2 different textures here. I wonder if I have the blue and the light. So that's blue. That's blue dark. That's blue dark. I thought so. So what? So something happened when I did this one. If I change it to blue dark, I did, didn't I? Water, blue, dark. There we go. That looks better. So that's a bit of a better blend. It's still not exactly as clean as I'd like it there, but that's okay. The only way to do that is to make it all one piece. Because I've got a little bit of, this one's more kind of natural, these ones are more carved out, then they have to look a little bit different. But what I can do is, now that I've got that, is I can, there we go, that looks better. So I might need to do a little bit of finagling. So I have my snap feature on, which is normally what I want because it'll just snap it into place, but because this is a little bit off, then I need to take my snap off so that I can move this to where I want it. Make sure that I'm perfectly straight. I didn't even do it all the way at the bottom there. That was smart of me. So again, this render is much better. See, when I actually load it up. When I convert it to the right kind of file, but it's okay that it looks a little bit rougher right now. That's gonna look bad, isn't it? Oh, it's okay. Not as bad as that. It'll do. And then that one is a little bit too low. So I'll snap from here. And then we will go by hand. Very carefully put that up. Ta-da! I'm building canals. And this one is, they probably just took that straight down into the cliff, onto the cliff. There we go. Canals are in place. Perfect. So of course the nobles, they get the freshest water right before it's kind of made its way down into Lowtown and then out into the fields. So the irony is that by the time it gets down to the fields, it's gone through these irrigation canals. But the nobles, they want their clean water, right? And they are the priority, so they get first crack at it, and they want everybody to know that. Oh, while I'm up here, so I will show. This is a forest tool. So I have the trees that I'm putting in, and then for big swaths of forest, sometimes these are just a forest tool, which is what I've done here, and then to show that there's kind of an edge to make it stand a little bit. Then I've got a lighted bevel effect just to show the edge here, so it's kind of like the shadows edge of the forest, and kind of gives it the idea of like the trees that are standing up. So just a little fun with that. And then I decided that sort of in the valley, as I mentioned, I've got these plateaus and there's kind of forest on top of them, and then there's this lush green valley leading off deeper into well, and it goes through a dead end, but the nobles like to have their little private enclosed space, so it's a private park. Private park perks. And over here, so this is actually something that will feature pretty heavily into the story, and it already has come up, is the crypts. These are the Valtier, or the Tier crypt. And the crypt originally, all families, so noble, highborn, lowborn, everybody was buried in the crypt. But in more recent years, it's been exclusive to the nobility, and they really fancied it up. So the Vale family really fancied it up, and there's been a lot of chaos going on. If you're following the stream, there's some no good stuff. Things coming out of the crypt that should be staying in the crypt, which is always fun. You know, you don't want things when you bury things, you cannot understand that way. But anyway, so what I've done with this, and which I'll be doing with a couple other things in this map, is a layered effect to show that part of the building is on this lower terrace level, kind of built into the cliffside. And then part of it extends up above as well. So if you think of the, what is it, Petra, the city of Petra, or the ruins of Petra, kind of that famous, it was used in Indiana Jones' Last Crusade, you know, that famous relief carved into the side of the cliff, you know, with the huge pillars going up and the statues. And so it's not just this like house. There's sort of an entrance that's built that is more structure, but then the interior itself actually goes into the cliff and into the rock, and so that's kind of the idea I have here, is that rather than digging down or having sort of a cemetery, as it were, the crypts go deep into the rock. They go down, but they can go up as well, because there's this huge, these cliffs are like 100 feet high, right? They're 100 feet above, and so you've got lots of space within to kind of build this multi-tiered crypt system. And you know, the sort of the main area, or the higher up, would be for lowborn. And again, the idea isn't that, like, you know, they're elevated, but it's more, they're more easily accessible, less defensible, and you want the nobility to have their crypts, you know, dug deep under, you know, some probably hidden passages, and you've got more security so that they, you know, their secrets and the bodies of their beloved lords and ladies can be buried with some measure of security. So that's sort of how the crypt system in Valtier works. And they also decided to build into the cliff because you know, there's the possibility of flooding. Um, you know, they don't want to have their crypts flooded. They live by the ocean. It can be a very tumultuous seas at times, and so having their crypts securely built inside these rock walls, they're basically untouchable, right? Like you can't really destroy them easily, and even floods, they have ways of, they've built in ways to drain the water out and to make sure that, you know, certain areas are sealed off, so that everything inside is actually really, really well preserved. So if you were to go in there, you'd find that not too much decay, not too much, you know, old cobwebs and dusty, you know, tunnels and tombs. It's very elaborate and very well kept, with, you know, magically lit wall sconces and beautifully tiled floors, and, you know, frescoes and motifs on all the pillars and the walls. Um, Very much palatial as far as crypts go, which I think is pretty cool. I kind of like the idea of that. So that is at the top there, and we need to work on these estate buildings and the bridge system. And in Lowtown, I had sort of these bridges built out of here, but I've been thinking for Hightown that I want to just have the road sort of just extend right over, and my thinking behind that was that they have the money to just build it how they want, right? They can make these roads. I kind of almost picture it that the channels of the water are, you know, sunken down a little bit, so there's, you know, obviously there's gonna be a few feet below the road, and then where the roads cross over, they've just, rather than building a bridge over, they've almost kind of built a tunnel under the road, like a there's a word for that. Culvert. Kind of like a culvert idea, but fancy culvert, because these be rich folk. So like arched stone, and yeah, you kind of get this cool effect here where you've got, you know, the roads just kind of cross over each other. You get this square, and then just this nice clean flowing water underneath it. And because the nobles don't want to have to walk farther than needed, then they've sort of built these crossings everywhere they feel like it. Well, at least where it's relevant. Because heaven forbid, and the gods forbid, that the nobles have to walk farther than they ought to cross the river. There was a rich man from Nottingham who tried to cross the river. What a dope! Tripped on a rope. Now look at him shiver. If you know what that reference is from, we are friends. We can be friends. One of the greatest movies of all time. One of the greatest theme songs of all time. Go Robin Hood. Do I want? Yeah, you know what? Let's go. Nobles are all about excess, right? So let's build another bridge there. They don't need it. It's like 50 feet away from one crossing to the other. They don't need it. But they would tell you that they do. They would tell you they do. Now the exception might be over here where, you know, the highest of the high nobles, the rich hotty-totty snooties would want to, they'd want to keep a certain amount of distance, obviously from Lowtown, but even from the less well off, I feel like. Maybe. So maybe instead of having another bridge over here, Oh, maybe. Let me make one. Let me see what I think about it. So again, a lot of times it's just trial and error, right? Actually, yeah, that makes sense there, because then using this entrance to Lowtown. See, so there's this really, really thick wall. It's kind of funny that the wall between Hightown and Lowtown is actually thicker than the wall outside the city, between the city and the wilderness. It just really shows you, you know, the Hightowners, the nobles, they need the best, right? If Lowtown gets invaded, that's bad, but not as bad as if Hightown got invaded. That's what they would do. So they've got the thicker walls. And then there's these gate houses, so the steps leading between the two terraces, and then sort of gate houses that can be closed off and guarded, and they present the only way in and out. Well, other than getting creative. So merchants and the like who would be wanting to use this entrance here would want to get up there with Edifin, and the highborn wouldn't want them walking all the way along here, you know, by their houses. Ugh. We can't have them walking near us. The very proximity to us would be an affront to our persons. So these manors, these wonderful estates, they need some walls. So I've got various types of walls that I can give them. For some of them, they probably just have some nice hedges. But I think we will go with what did I do? So there's terrain, symbols that work, right? Because I'm on the upper terrain. Kind of go with these stone walls. Now I'm going to turn on my grid, or reveal my grid. I don't use the grid as much when I'm doing this sort of thing. Obviously for, you know, dungeon maps and sometimes even well, for world maps I don't always necessarily use it either. It's just sort of as a guide, and it kind of shows me where my snap is going to take place. But you know what? It's actually not even really working out the way that I want it to right now, so I'm going to take back what I said, and goodbye grid, you are not necessary. Be gone. What kind of stone wall? Oh, I could go like, I feel like this guy over here is gonna have some big old walls, whereas these guys have some decent walls, but not so crazy. And they're gonna have to have a gate of some sort. So, but I can build that gate in as I see fit. So I just do some overlapping here. Totally doing this freehand with no snapping. No snap to grid, so hopefully it turns out okay, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. Doesn't have to be even either. Oh, there we go. Yes, you got these huge shadows on it. I'm gonna take those shadows off again though. We're gonna edit the shadows at least. Let's go 5 high. 5. Oh, there we go, that's better. Still gives the shadow to show the height, that these are higher objects. So really it's one of the easiest ways to show the difference in height between symbols is on the different layers. So you can use the wall shadow. There's drop shadow effects as well. The wall shadow, what it does is it uses the global sun position. So there is a global sun. You can decide whatever angle you want the sun to be at, and what the wall shadow effect does, so the directional wall shadow, is it uses the global sun direction, and you can change the opacity of it, so you can change how dark you want the shadow to be. Like if I did 100%, it's just going to be a solid black mass, which is weird. Nobody likes that. It just doesn't make any sense. I've got it at 50 right now. So again, for higher objects, I go a little bit darker. And then the length is essentially how many units the shadow goes. So you can have it really, really close if you want. And if I was that close, I'd probably go with a higher opacity so that it stands a little bit more. You can go super, super far. So if you got like a really, really tall object where you want it to stand out as something that's super tall, then you can use this, go a little bit longer there. But I think I'd like 5 for this and just a little bit of blur. I might actually reduce the opacity just a bit, so it just kind of shows on the houses up here that they're tall, but they're not so tall that it's blocking out all the sun. Nobody really wants that. These nobles, they want their sunlight. So this house is, they're not too big on the property. They don't care about having the grass and the greenery. They want the protection. You've probably got multi-storied mansion and going underground a little bit, and maybe they're not as well off as some of the others, but they want their protection. That's what they need. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I think that works. And these guys down here, so we'll have a little bit of space in between. It's always got to have some gaps between the walls. And these guys, this family here is going to have a nice big property, and we'll say that there'll be some greenery though on the roadside here, so that when you're walking along, sort of the entrance to the house will be the entrance to the property. Will go like right up to it. That could be cool. Yeah, I like this idea. So that's where the gate kind of starts, right there. And so there's this just past the strip of green, the outside. Now we'll go the curve wall here. Oh, yep, now I know what I'm gonna do. Sometimes I know ahead of time, and sometimes I figure it out as I go. And I think I have figured it out as I go on this one. And we will do this sort of look. Yeah, I like that. I'll cheat and make this wall a little bit bigger. Oop. Okay, that kind of works there. So they've got a little bit larger property, and they've got this kind of walk leading up to it, and then we'll put in a couple of little high hedge walls like that there that lead up to the manor. That's nice. Isn't that nice? And then we can put some trees. So this is where the symmetry will kick in, because I don't want everything to look good. Put a few trees in there. They will have some trees on their property because they can. Perhaps they have their own, I'm gonna say, actually no, not a mausoleum. They need a servant quarters though. So something like that. Yeah. So yeah, the servant quarters. There we go. And because this one is got its own little walkway there. It needs to have its own footpath. Its own private sidewalk or walk going up. Now everything in the noble's estate, right, has to be all right angles and, well, not necessarily has to be, but for these guys everything looks pristine. It's all very carefully planned out. Got some bushes at the front there. Bushes here and there. So again, these will go underneath the higher level so that it will it'll hide under the trees. That looks good. So I was thinking a crypt, but maybe a personal crypt doesn't work. But what if like a monument, like a statue? Oh, a fountain. They've got their own fountain. That's what they've got. So in their own private garden here, I have a very special fountain. And that very special fountain will be surrounded by very special bushes. These are rare. They've been transplanted from the Dare lands far, far, far to the east. They're called cedar. Very rare trees. Yeah, see those holes show up there, just babbling.
This is very strange. Don't like it.
There we go. Look at that nice estate. Wouldn't you want to live there? I would. I think that's actually nice. That looks fairly nice. I would live there. Not gonna lie. Well, not right now because of things that are happening in Tyr, but under normal circumstances, I would be happy to live there. Alright, now this house, I think I need to add something to it. I want to make it stand out just a wee bit. So I'm going to use another sort of building. We'll say that it's got a bit of a different top to it. Like it's got like a tower. Oh, I gotta match this. Line this up. All right. Oh, I need this to go in high symbols though. So if I do it should give me a nice shadow coming up, but there we go. Just 3D effect. So it's got a bigger, this one goes up more, and that is shown by that extra little tower there. I don't want the entrance to this one to be. Yeah, I was confident, all confident that I was going to be able to do the entry to that one after, but I think I know what I can do actually. I'm just going to go symbols high, and so I'm going to put this here. And I'll just make sure that I bring the house to the front. So it'll come in front of those walls, and then they'll kind of go. Theoretically, they should go in behind, but why are they not doing it? Send it to back. Go to back. When doing CC3, why are you not cooperating? Well, then these are going to go a layer below. If they behave. There we go. Okay, that works. That makes more sense for the entrance. And then they can only get into the garden from kind of the outside of the house. You have to go into the house and then out
to get to the private gardens. Can't have any old rabble coming in.
What just happened? That is not what was supposed to happen.
Yes, we wouldn't want the rabble coming in the wrong way.
We give them a bit of a wider entrance, wider walkway, a path up to their house. And now fill it in with some trees. Take off snap. But these need to be on high. It's like, you know, there's always like that one super rich house, but it's still like somewhat like weathered and stuff. Like it's not the best condition. This is gonna be that house. Oh, for the, come on. You telling me I'm gonna have to put these in lower level 2. So that there's probably something built into those wall symbols that they are set to go on the top of the sheet no matter what. So even if you try to move things behind them, they will still stay at the front. Sometimes I find that there are certain symbols that do that. It's very strange. Thanks for those of you who are hanging out with me and lurking. Appreciate it. Not in the habit. I don't point out names of those lurking because I understand that some people just want to be in the background, don't want to be called out for, you know, it can be an anxiety thing too, right? And for me, it can feel that way sometimes. So I would just say that I see you there, and thanks for hanging out with me. Appreciate it. Okay, so I've got 2 noble manors down, and we've got one that's got a nice tower on top of it. And now I'm British because I'm working on noble manors, so you know what they say, manners maketh the man. Manners maketh the noble family. These guys could have fancy walls. But like circle walls. Yeah. Let's go circle wall. Now I need my grid on for this, not to snap to, but just I'm gonna double check my angles here. So I want this to go 3. So that's 45 degrees. That's kind of what I need. And go right to wall level or house level there. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 45 degrees. Oh nope, that's not quite. That's more 45 degrees. I think. Oh yeah, the house is a little bit wonky. That was my problem. Okay, so that's what I need to do first. Is I think I need to fix. I need to fix the rotation in the house. This is not working. So we're gonna redo this guy. Sometimes it is necessary to prune and redo. And where did I get that house? Oh right, I used a tempo. What scale did I use? I didn't use 1, did I? Ooh, nope. 175. Yes. Okay. I know. It's like, yeah, the angle's a bit off because the road angle's a bit off, but that's okay. The road angle can be off. But for the sake of milling walls, making it easy for myself, I'm going to do that. Yeah. I'll just need to make it easier. And I need this to go on symbols level so that I can have my tower. Wrong one. Going high. And Viola. Viola, we have liftoff. There we go. That is muchos betteros. So now, let's take this off for now because I don't need to change that. So now, it should work at the angles that I wanted to for the house. There we go. And a mirror just so I can keep it exactly opposite. And like so. add that after. I need to make sure that I get this right. Now I'm not sure because then it has like no property. These guys need property. So I'm a scrap that plan and go with the alternate here. Yep. And they're gonna have all this land, like right to the end. Day Ridge. Rich and eccentric, so I'd like to have a little bit of a fun wall to there. There we go. Okay, I think I am happy with that. And you know what? They're gonna have this nice, like, curved in kind of pathway that's just theirs, right? So there. That'll look, that looks nice. That'll work. Start some shrubs on. Oh, or at the front of their estate, they have got some fountains. Yes, there we go. They got a couple of fountains out front. And perhaps like on the top. Oh yeah, they got like a statue that looms over the entryway. Like so, standing up above. To show, so when anybody comes to the house, the manor, they are being watched over by some angelic guardian. Judging their entrance, seeing if they are worthy or not. Wonderful, wonderful. Tree there. They're gonna have some nice little perfect gardens in the back here. Where they like to do some they cultivate rare plants, little box planters. Yeah. That looks good. Alright, three no bows done. Looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. Alright, so now we go to these guys over here. And these guys are gonna be fancy pants. They wanted to have a different shaped house. Again, this is just you know, representative. It's not actually what the house looks like necessarily. But still, where does the snap guide take me? I wonder. Got a 40 grid 5 snap. I'm going to make a 40 grid 10 snap so I can snap a little bit more precisely. So that's nice thing, you can really edit your grids. When you create your hex grid or your square grid, you can change obviously the style or the spacing of it. But then you can alter your snap as well. So I've got a 40 grid 5 snap, I want a 10 snap. And let's see. And that might be too much. You can see that it's snapping, but it's like so tight, so small. Maybe that's too, not too much. How else could I divide that? I just need a little bit more precision. Maybe like an 8 snap. Oh, that's my problem. I did snap divisions 5. No, wait, what did I do? Spacing 40. Snap divisions 5. So I need to do spacing 40, snap divisions 10, 10. There we go. I just needed to work it out a little bit better. Use my brain. Numbers are not always my favorite. I have a dyscalculia, which means that I have problems with numbers sometimes. My brain doesn't like them. It's a good way to think of it. My brain just kind of sometimes sees numbers and goes, nah. You're not going to understand those. And so I have to give myself some leeway sometimes. Okay, now this. What you doing, CC3 plus? How is it not lining up the way it ought to? I don't want outer, inner one there. And the inner one's not lining up the way it should. And if I put it on mirror, that's sort of better. Okay, so that actually works perfectly. That can be my mirror. Oh, no, I don't want that. That'll be a nice entryway right there into the center part of the house. They're gonna have all this land, all of it. So this land is our land, it is not your land. Here, get your own land, you can't have it, it's ours. A sliver of land there that peasants can have. Here, yes. Of course, that's how they have to talk. That's how all haughty nobles talk. Oh, yeah, that's what I could do. They're gonna have guard towers, their own guard towers, because need our own security. We never trust the security of these inferior folk. Here. Here. Alright. That works. It's all very well and good that Lord Vale says that he will see to our security, but we don't really trust him. No, we don't. We'd rather see to it ourselves. Yes, we all rich will pay for the best. Hire the finest mercenaries this money can buy. And then assassins as well. It's overlapping a bit, but that is okay. It's alright. So here's where it gets tricky. Putting it on the curves. But if I like the idea of a curve or not. Now see, sometimes what I'll do if I really need something to change, I will just redo the road, and I think that's what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to redo this road, maybe even the edge of that pond, the reservoir, because I'm not liking how my walls are shaping up here. So we are going to take them out, take that road out. Because they don't really need a road there, do I? Like, if this is all their property, and this guy's got this property on there, I could just kind of have that road there, and then he's got this. They've got this whole stretch of land. I kind of like that idea. So that is what I'm going to do. Let's put this road back here. And I mean, I guess that road can go to the reservoir. I'm just gonna go right out. Almost like a pier. This is their freshwater source, so they should have access to it, right? Okay, yeah, I think that is gonna work better for what I have in mind. If you are hanging out, you're watching the chat, you're watching the stream here, and if you see me doing something, you're like, that's a really dumb idea, Greg. You need to do something different. Feel free to let me know. I might say that it's a brilliant idea, and I might stick to it. But if you do point something out, and I realize, Yeah, that is a stupid. Then yeah, I will be happy to. Now, why did my grid go and change on me? I did a 4 grid 10 snap. See, and now it's gone and changed. I don't understand what is happening here. I think it's time for plan. So plan B is like plan Q at this point. We're in Valtier, so plan V. Plan V is what we're gonna go with. I'm going to use the walls tool instead. Instead of what I am screwing up on my own here. But I need this to be walls, not walls terrace. I do have, okay, actually walls are above terrain though, so that's fine. And oi, that's a bit dark. That's a wee bit too dark. Now what is it? Has it got the inner glow? Probably. Blur rate is 5. No, I don't want that. Like 1. 1.5 maybe. That is an old setting I had. I do want a bit of a bevel, I think, to show that it's a topped wall. Maybe no blur. Maybe a little blur. Like the tiniest wee little bit of blur. Okay. I think this is going to be our best plan so far. Because it'll give me that little bit. Yeah, that's what I want. Why is the wall shadow going that way though? Oh, I know why. I know why. I got because I had this wall here, that's why. Okay, well, I can change that. I'm probably gonna have to create another wall layer or another wall sheet because that's just something I'm gonna have to do. Which is okay. I'm okay with that. I'm 100% okay with creating another sheet if I have to. In the meantime, though, I will just finish out this wall. Go to there. Puppy time. Augie, come here. Are you gonna help me? No? Okay, go to bed. Griffin's gonna help me. Griffin, you gonna help me build? Hi, Griffin. Wave. You gonna kiss? Oh. What do you think? You look at my map? Does it look nice? What do you think? Do you approve? If you approve, then be cute. Oh, he approves. Not that you can really do anything other than be cute, so it's kind of rigged, I guess. Okay, I'm much happier with this wall. It's gonna have to do some sort of weird angle thing here, though. What? Did I offend you? I'm sorry, Griffin. What did I say? What did I say that offended you, Griffin? Oh, that looks weird. They want straight angles, these people, so go like there, I guess, and then up. Yeah, that's better. I agree. Straight angles. Okay. So that looks a lot better than what we had before. So they've got a pretty decent size property there, and showing off their wealth by having thicker walls than their neighbors. So even thicker than other nobles, right? This is, they've kind of got proximity. Oh, right. They were gonna have access to the water there, private access. So I should give them like a little dock or something. But I'm gonna need to leave room for them to have that access. My forgetful brain. So do something like that. Then we can do this wall like the road, I mean, kind of have this go out like that, so they've got their own little private pier. That is the sort of thing these people would have. Sparing no expense for extravagance. Oh, whoops, that went I had that on the wrong layer. Always fun when that happens. It needs to be on the roads high. There we go. So they've got a nice wide walkway there too, an entryway. And I feel like their sort of private water entry at the back here is going to have its own gate, as it were. I'll make like a wooden gate there. Oh, maybe they got like a wooden gate in front there as well. They get a portcullis entrance. Yep. Better. They're gonna have like big trees, right? For that extra shade. And I bet they'll even have like their own field. Not a field, but they've got they're gonna have stuff growing back here. Even if it's just like, you know, they've got this little vegetable garden or something. I gotta make that look a little bit different. So I have these. I did have a field, terraced terrain. I could put that on there, but I think I need to do another one of these. So we'll call this is gonna be high city, high town terrain. And that will go there. I'm going to borrow my terrace terrain effects. And now, if I pop this onto that high town terrain, that should give me the look that I want. Ooh, almost. The transparency is way too high. 80-ish. Maybe no transparency. Okay, let's take transparency off and see how we're doing here. Oh, it's my edge fade. Yeah, I need that to be much lower. Okay, that's not too bad. And if I add a little bit of transparency back again. Okay, yeah, that's not bad. So they've got some rows. They've got some vegetables, you know, growing in the back there. Their own plants. Maybe they've got some grapes. Oh, yes, that's what it is. It's grapes. It's grapes. They are making wine. That's what they're doing. That is what they are doing, making wine. Just a little bit. Just enough grapes to kind of have their own little thing going here. But I could get more. Something else. What if, well, actually, grapes would be more along these lines, like, right, they've got rows going on here. So this is why they've got like a prime spot of land. And nobody complains. Well, other nobles do, but not really, because these folks make really good wine. They've got the land for it. Now that is an estate right there. Private water access. They've got the vegetable garden. They've got wine. Fancy house with, you know, multiple wings. They're living the high life. They are indeed. And now these folks over here, they have a hedge wall, cultivated hedge wall. So now when we say hedge wall, it's not like, you know, somebody could just like walk right through it. It's got maybe it's got some like field stone or something hidden, but it's ivy, and it's got like thorns, probably got like magical flowers, enchanted vines as a security measure. So if anybody tries to climb over the hedge wall, the vines snare them and hold them fast until the guards can arrive. I like that idea. It's a good kind of trap idea too, right? I think so. And then they've got this wooden gated entrance at the front there. Yeah. It's probably an interesting family too. Maybe they need, I think they need a bit of a tower actually. A bit of a tower. That works. All right, I think I'm going to wrap up shortly. I've got quite a bit done. I'm excited for when I get this finished. I will show it on live on stream once it is fully rendered, and again the fully rendered product will look quite a bit different, because then the textures come out in all their glory. And again, this program, it does intentionally so that you know, it saves memory. And I can even so everything works in sheets. So if I didn't have the effects on all these different sheets, this is what it would look like. Just for reference, looks like poop, pale pasty poop. So I mean, yeah, if you didn't have any effects, it's like, what even, you can kind of make stuff out. But I mean, look at the difference. So no effects on and effects. Big difference. So a lot of it is, you know, really playing with. I've had to learn how to play with, you know, lighted beveling and shadow effects and you know, edge fade effects. I've done custom terrain graphics and bitmaps, you know, things like that. So there is, it's not just kind of a plug and play, you know. There are some, you know, like I think Incarnate, you know, there's similar lines where you have a lot of symbols and a lot of assets where you just kind of plug in, and that part isn't too hard to do. I guess that's kind of the basics of the program. The idea is just, you know, drag and drop, or click and drop in this case, you know. So I want to put some stone towers, you know, I'm going to be able to do that. But well, if I don't break my program, sometimes it freezes. Like right now, it's not wanting me to put anything in, so, which is curious. I guess it's telling me that it's time for it to sleep as well. So this is a good time for me to end it there. But yeah, so we got some nice estates finished here in Hightown, and some nice canal work with these bridges going over it, and our nice temple Temple Hilltop here with the outdoor water shrine and the bridge. Everything looks really nice there. So that is that's a good place to end it for today. So thanks for hanging out, and a little bit different, I know, than what we normally do, but we're trying to ensure that we always have some content going, even if we can't be playing our regular stream game, whether it's a one-shot run by one of the other guys, or we're going to be trying doing different stuff throughout the year, but we want to try to make sure that we're bringing content to you guys every week. So we really appreciate you tuning in. Do check out our link tree. So if you go to linktr.ee/elderbrain, then you can find links to all of our socials, or just search the Elderbrain or Elderbrain Cast on most social media platforms. We've got an Instagram that's going to be launching very soon. Mike is working on that. And of course we have our Patreon, and on our Patreon right now we have the first edition of our Brainstorm magazine. It is a D&D content magazine that is going to be filled with all kinds of stuff. Every couple months we're going to release it. Maps, monsters, magic items, alliteration, adventures, rolling tables, all that sort. And the first issue is 100% free. If you head over on to our Patreon, you don't have to be a patron to grab that issue, but if you check it out, download it, and if you like what you see, then do consider becoming a patron and supporting us, and we would greatly appreciate that. It'll help us to make more awesome content for you. But that is it, so thanks for hanging out, and we should be back next week with our regular stream. And if you have been watching, then you know that we've got a rather big encounter in more ways than one on the docket. So we'll catch you then. Happy gaming, everyone.